If you ever wonder what I do before clicking record, it's just waiting for the video to load as I just stare like this. That's all I do until it finally loads. Fun fact. Anyways, welcome back to the 334. 333 was the last time we're gonna have a numerical thingy. All the same number. I guess there's gonna be 3, 4, 5 coming up. What is it? One more day, and then it's a month left. Yeah. So, that's an idea. That's one. Yay. I went to a farm, as I mentioned, a while ago for a Halloween thing. A while ago, 2 days. But I am feeling it, man. I'm better than yesterday, but I am feeling it. Yeah. Apparently, the kids that my sister works with love bugs. So, every time they see a bug, and they're like, woo. But apparently, sometimes kids in general, love bugs, apparently. And apparently are super nice. And I'm like, I'm sorry, when I worked with, volunteer when I was in, middle school, high school, the kids were not nice. They were quite rude. They were quite judgy. And my sister's like, yeah, but they're nice now. They'll just compliment each other and people and things. And I'm like, excuse me, that's not how that works. Kids are rude. So anyways, I don't know if that has always been incorrect, or somehow we are making very nice children. Anyways, so what happened is, this kid, apparently got out of a car to get dropped off. My sister stands at the gate, the doorway, the gateway, sure. If you want to make pretend like it's really fancy, the doorway. How the hallways have double doors, and then, yes, anyway, so what happened is, there's the double doors, and she'll wait there. And a kid that she does not know gets out of a car getting dropped off, walks up to my sister and goes, I found this cicada. And my sibling's like, oh, that's fun. And the kid is like, no. And passes her, holds out his hand, and there's a cicada in his hand. And my mom, Freudian slip, my sister was like, oh, do you want to put it in a bush? And he goes, could you put it in a bush? And she's like, oh, yeah, I can put it in a bush. And the kid just goes like this, grabs a cicada, moves, and puts the cicada onto my sister's hand. And she just had to walk and put it in some grass bushes out of the walkway. But she's like, I didn't see him stop and grab him from the, sidewalk. Did he bring the cicada from his house? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. So I'm like, okay. But apparently, my sister started a little bit late. They were very desperate. And she's like, I just assumed it would take a little bit. But they're like, can we have you tomorrow? So anyways, she showed up 2 days after the school year started. Well, the kids started showing up. School year technically for the teachers started, I think, a week before that or something. And my sister shows up, and they're like, okay, rundown. Kids are kids. Pretty much, if you see a bug and this one kid sees the bug, don't kill the bug. And my sister's like, oh, okay, well, I don't kill bugs, but that's good to know. And the teacher, the real teacher, the head teacher, not a temp, went last time. He saw, like, at the first couple days, I guess, there was a little house centipede, and they were taking it outside because the adult didn't want it there, and the kids wanted to rescue it. So they're like, okay, let's move the house centipede outside. But apparently one of them died in the process because there was actually a few. And they were getting the house centipede, one of them died, and the kid had a breakdown about this bug, the centipede, being killed or dying. And so you're not allowed to kill any bug that this kid sees, which is fine. But apparently there's also a window in the classroom and a bush in front of it. So apparently bees love this bush. Every time a kid sees a bee, all the other kids wants to see this bee. So they all call out, there's a bee. And they all want to see this bee because they love looking at bugs, man. Kids just love bugs. So the cicada one wasn't even my sister's, like, kid. One of her, like, class kids. What, students, I guess you call them. But it just was very funny that it's just like, apparently they just love bugs, man. Just love bugs. And I know, back when I was in, like, maybe high school, maybe college, like early college for me, so like 17, let's go with 17. I was in, maybe younger, max 17, and I was in church, and church there was the oldest, which is I was part of class that wasn't the adult class, and then the kids, like the very, very youngest, right next to each other. So every time we try to walk out of our classroom, there'll be parents picking up the kids from the other classroom to then go to service or go home. So what happened is one time I was walking by, and I don't know why, but we stopped in to talk to, I think, the teacher, one of the classmates. We all know her. We all love her. She's great. Knew her since I was a child. Grew up with her children, everything. Or her grandchildren. It was great. So what happened was, I had a ring with, like, a really big beetle on it. And the kids loved it. And I was like, oh, and they're like, is that a beetle? I'm like, not a real one. Because I didn't know how they felt. I'm like, no, not a real one. And I had the ring, and so I took it off, and I was like, here, you want to hold it? And then he's like, oh my god, can I wear it? I'm like, yeah. So he puts it on his thumb, but it's, of course, huge, because it's already big for me. And then he puts his hand like this to make a fist with the thumb inside, and just starts shaking it around. And I'm like, oh, okay, weird, but okay. And the other one's like, oh my god, can I hold it too? And I'm like, yeah. So they're looking at it, and some of them didn't want to touch it, wanted to be respectful, or whatever. And then the teacher is like, what's going on? I'm like, oh, we're looking at my bug ring, it looks like a beetle. And apparently that day they talked about probably something to do with Jesus, but also nature. So they had, like, those, like, pudding plus, like, gummy worms plus, like, Oreos on top, kind of thing. That was what they were doing. They were learning about dirt and worms and bugs and whatever the Bible lesson was. And so apparently they were in a really bug-friendly mood, especially that day, and it was very, very funny to me that they just loved my beetle ring. It was very funny. Yeah, I don't know I have I don't know why, and I don't know if it's the best idea, but it's how I do it. If a kid asks me something, my instinct is to answer within, just answer the question and don't explain past the point of what they ask. With questions that I don't feel comfortable doing that, but if they ask something, I'll answer it. So I don't, but a lot of times with kids, when they ask you something, it's best to ask what they mean so you don't accidentally answer or explain the wrong thing. So what happened was this one time my cousin asked me about tattoos, and I have a few. You guys probably seen I have a few tattoos, and I got one where I was visiting him, and he was like, are you gonna have that next time I see you? And I go, yes, I will. I'll have it next time I see you, or in the time after that, every time till I no longer have my arm. And he's like, and I bet you're gonna have more too, aren't you? And I go, yes, probably, yeah. And he's like, and I bet you're gonna have some on your face. I'm like, I'm not. I don't know. I have no face tattoos, like not really my thing. But yeah, nah. But each their own. If like I'm not against face tattoos, but it's probably one of the last places I tattoo, unless I have a very specific tattoo in mind that worked up. Here up is what I consider like face, a face tattoo. And I'm like, no. And he was like, can you get and then now his like little brain is doing questions, and I'm like, okay. You can tell he's thinking, and give it this kid. I say kid, he was older than, like, he wasn't a child, like he wasn't 5, he was older. But what happened was he asked me, can you like get tattoos like on your hands? And I'm like, yes. And he's like, on your eyes. I'm like, I don't know if he meant eyelids, but eyeballs. But I didn't want to scare him by saying eyeballs, so I said yes. Because technically you can do both, so whatever he's thinking, technically the answer is yes. And he goes, on your feet? And I'm like, yeah. On your bottom, of your feet? Yes. And he looks down at himself, and he goes, on you. And I'm like, yes, there too. And I'm like, okay, the weird question, but we're gonna end it here, right? Right? No. He asked about lady parts. He's like, can ladies get it on their... And I'm like, yes. Yes, he goes, no, not on, in. Yes? Yeah, you can. I don't know why you would want it in, but yes, there too. And it was a very interesting, yeah. And then I realized maybe I should have told him to, like, I don't know. I just like, I don't think I should have walked away from it. I shouldn't have been like, don't ask me that. But like, I'm like, because it was funny because he told me that in 2nd grade, 2 of his classmates were doing honeymoon activities, and I was like, oh my god, I'm reporting them to someone. And I was like, what do you mean? And because of that, that's the point where you always have to ask what you mean. So I'm like, what do you mean? And he goes, like kissing and slow dancing. I'm like, oh, thank god. Because at that age, I knew what that was. Like, at the age he is, I knew what, or about that kind of stuff. So I'm like, because if you are correct, but then I realized, wait, this is the same kid that isn't allowed to use the internet. So I don't think he knows, and then it confirmed because he said slow dancing for honeymoon activities, and he meant it, like legitimately meant slow dancing. And I'm like, newsflash, you can slow dance with anyone. But okay, kid. This is the same kid that was, showed me 2 Link statues, like his little amiibos or whatever you call them. And with, told me one was a girl and one was a boy because one had, I don't remember the word he used. It wasn't bold, it was like a something in his pants. I don't know what it was. And I was like, yes. And apparently he was acutely aware that men have penors and women have vaginas, and he was asking me about them, like if you can tattoo them, and how one of his Link statues is a girl because it does not have a bump in his pants, but the other one was a boy because it does. This was extra confusing, I think, for him, because I said that I was transgender, and he was like, didn't understand what that meant. So when I first met him, he's like, oh, can I hang out with them? Well, not them, my name. Can I hang out with name? And because, because he, they, she, and my uncle, because I was gonna be like, oh, okay, I didn't know, and my uncle just went, he, it's okay, and I was like, this kid's nailing it. I met him when he was like 2, and he's friggin' nailing it with the calling out or saying pronoun. Like this kid understands how to use non-binary or non-gendered pronouns because he went with they. Like he even knew that there's a singular they. So that's very fun. English is his second language, or his not dominant mother tongue. He doesn't know rules very well. He sometimes doesn't break up things like bow and arrow. He thinks the bow and arrow just indicates the bow because he still calls the arrows files, which is a German word for arrows. So, which I never did learn the word for bow because he's like, no, don't use, I'm trying, he wants to learn English from English speakers. So he's like, no, don't, call it what it is. And I'm like, okay, well, take out your bow. And he goes, okay. And then, but he would call it, I think he then shortened it, but I don't think he connected it to bow and arrows instead of just shortening the word bow and arrow to bow, instead of realizing there were 2 different words, because I kept calling, like, okay, what arrows do you have? And he goes, what files I have? I have electric. And I'm like, no, kid, arrows, they're arrows. They're arrows. And I tried explaining that to him, but he's like, I don't need an English lesson right now. I'm playing a video game. I'm like, fair. So, anyways,